Hello, Kuman229 here with another Topic of the Week video, and this week I'll be talking about the relationship between Ron and Hermione from Harry Potter. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr anon, and their topic is, how well was the pairing of Hermione and Ron written? Not very. But to actually talk about this, it's where do I start with this? It's important to note that I don't think that Hermione and Ron were terrible completely from the beginning. I see a lot of people say that, and I don't quite think that's right. Ron and Hermione's relationship ended up becoming really terrible, but to be fair, everything in Harry Potter ended up becoming terrible by the end of the series. I think when they started out, going back to the first book, The Sorcerer's Stone, you had Hermione and Ron they had an antagonistic relationship, but they were 11. They weren't even friends by that point. It was over the course of the book that they ended up becoming friends. So that on, Chamber of Secrets onwards, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are the trio. So yeah, while there were mean things done and Hermione was a know-it-all brat and Ron was being, just kind of a dick, they ended up becoming friends. And Ron ended up becoming someone who was willing to put himself on the line to help his friends to go on. That's why, when they were playing the chess game, so Ron ended up having his character development. Hermione had her character development. And Harry, was sort of ended up, did he have character development? A little bit, yeah, But that wasn't a problem. They had their character development. Then you go on for books 2 and 3, and I don't remember there being anything that stuck out to me. I mean, in fact, I used to kind of like Ron and Hermione. Not in a mock, oh my gosh, I love them, kind of like I was with Harry and Cho, but more of a, that'd be cute. Alright, I'd be cool with that. And then over the course of the years, I started feeling like I lost any kind of passion for that pairing. And I wondered why until I actually started really thinking about it. In books 2 and 3, I don't remember there being anything. I actually remember liking them in those books. But then it's the Goblet of Fire where problems really start coming up. And there are a lot of problems that really start coming up. I've talked about this before, but Goblet of Fire is really where the series took its downward, turn, and it never really recovered. Goblet of Fire had so much bad writing in it. Oh my gosh, the plot was a mess and full of plot holes. But talking about Ron and Hermione's characters, this was the book where Ron started his transformation into in-series Ron. Ron was a douchebag in that book for no reason. Victor Crumb likes Hermione, which doesn't really make as much sense in the book since she's not supposed to be beautiful. Emma Watson was much prettier than her book counterpart by that point. She looked just like Hermione in the beginning, but as you start going over the years, she starts becoming a lot more beautiful than her book counterpart. So it makes a little more sense why Crumb would be more interested in her in the movie than the books, but talking about the books, since that's the proper canon, it doesn't really make as much sense. And it really only happens so that Ron could get jealous. But why would Ron get jealous? I mean, outside of feeling like he couldn't match up to someone like Crumb since he's such a hardcore Victor Crumb fanboy, which Rowling goes out of her way to establish at the beginning of the book. What's the point of this? Oh, so that Ron could get jealous, because what we needed was romance drama. Ugh. When a writer's going to learn, romance drama is not what people really want. We want romantic development. There can be drama, but doing nothing but stirring up drama between characters never works out. It just makes everything look bad. Case in point, Legend of Korra. But Ron doesn't just act jealous of Hermione he doesn't just act jealous over Hermione, he acts jealous over Harry too. What the crap? crap. Like, Harry doesn't qualify. He's not old enough to be he wasn't old enough to put his name into the Goblet of Fire. He said numerous times, I don't want to do this. I'm not looking for any kind of recognition. But then Ron assumes the worst. Like, I'm sorry, but he's been friends for several years. Like, maybe in the beginning, in the first couple of years, I could understand maybe assuming the worst. But in book 2, in the Chamber of Secrets, Ron takes his car and basically rescues Harry from the Dursleys. They're ride or die. Ron was pretty much a ride or die friend. So why is he acting like such a jealous baby now? To stir up drama. And this is a problem. And this is where I think a lot of people's issues with Ron really start coming up. But this isn't even in character for Ron. And one thing I do want to establish, though, is this isn't just a Ron problem. And this is something that affects a lot of series, particularly when talking about critics. You'll have a lot of people who become very polarized in their views. You'll have stans who defend literally everything. Like, there will be Ron and Hermione stans who say everything is flawless, everything is wonderful. It's not. Then you'll have the absolute haters who say that everything is bad, everything is horrible, and you have to point it all out. And, there's never been anything good. Ron and Hermione have been absolute trash since the beginning. It goes a bit to an extreme. But this is a problem that I see in a lot of series. In fact, with Legend of Korra, this actually happened with Mako. Yes, Mako is horribly written. Awful. Like, I hated Mako, particularly in books 1 and 2. But this isn't just a Mako problem. Everyone got written badly, particularly, by the time you get to book 2, and then you get to 3 and 4, then everyone's been ruined. Tenzin, who starts off as a wise mentor, who kind of has a stick up his butt, becomes nothing but a Korra cheerleader. Praising her for everything and bowing to her whims. You have Bolin being a legitimately kind and sweet guy who cared about Korra, to being some sort of sleazy, nice guy who felt entitled to his co-star's romantic affections because she played his love interest. What? Lynn, who's started out being lawful good to a fault, was someone who was willing to destroy the air nomad to destroy the air temple island to show off that she's a jelly petty ex-girlfriend. And this problem expands. Like, Korra was written awfully. Asami was written terribly. Starting with book 2, she was written to be an idiot, and then after that, she became nothing but a money source and and someone to just be Korra's handmaiden, to help her out, despite the fact that Korra does nothing for her in return. This isn't a Mako problem. This is a Legend of Korra problem. And even talking about Ruby, Jean gets a lot of focus as being the worst character and everything. He's really not. But a lot of people will hyper-focus on Jean's problems. Jean's badly written. Don't get me wrong. Jean's got a lot of writing problems. Particularly an issue of stagnation, which, why is he in the show if he hasn't, really done anything for 3 seasons? But then that's not just a Jean problem. This also affects Ruby. Ruby's our main character who does literally nothing. So why is she the main character? What really are Yang and Weiss's points? Why are Ren and Nora still around? What really is the point of a character like Oscar? This isn't just a Jean problem, this is a Ruby problem. And Jean is just one of many characters who is written horribly. And the same thing happens with Ron and Hermione. And I know I talked a lot about stuff that's not Ron and Hermione just now, but I want to really make this point clear. A lot of people demonize Ron for these problems, but then will ignore the problems for everyone else. And it's funny because this is the Ron the Death Eater trope in full effect. Ron is evil. Ron is horrible. Someone like Draco. Oh, Draco is pure and wonderful. No, he's not. He was badly written, of course, and his potential was squandered by Rowling. because this is a Rowling problem, not a Ron problem. Some people will portray Ron as a horrible person. Yeah, he acted like a complete dick later in the series, but particularly going on Goblet of Fire onward, I don't particularly take those stories seriously. I mean, when I rewrote it from Goblet of Fire onward. So, when you're talking about these characters, you can't just say that Ron is the only one who is bad. You can't just say that Ron was horrible all the time. No, he was not. Particularly, for the first 3 books, he was fine. I would actually straight up say that I liked Ron's character for the first 3 books. It's book 4 onward that we started seeing these weird problems. And that at times he would just suddenly burst out into drama for no reason. Other than that's what J.K. Rowling wanted to happen. But Hermione was written badly, Harry was written badly, everyone was written badly, Dumbledore was written badly. I really liked Dumbledore, and everyone really liked Dumbledore, but then over the course of the series, once you got to the last couple books, really, you started finding out that Dumbledore was basically just a manipulative douchebag. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Rowling, excuse me? You took a character, a beloved mentor figure that people cared about, and then you made a lot of people just hate him because plot, I guess? It's this kind of stuff that's obnoxious as all hell. I don't want to hate any of these characters. But the problem is that the writing is bad. But it's important to note when the writing was bad. If there's stuff that's good, then you point it out. If there's stuff that's bad, you point it out. It's fair criticism. It's, that's really what I believe in, is you have to point out the stuff that's bad and point out the stuff that's good. And if there's a lot of bad, then, well, there's a lot of bad. But if there is something good, then there's something good. And the problem with Ron is that he gets the Ron the Death Eater trope because, Ron becomes absolutely demonized, while characters like Draco are the Draco in leather pants trope. And it's funny how that happens, because this seems to be so consistent where, good guys are written badly and do bad things. They become instantly demonized, but bad characters can be written badly and be absolutely awful characters, but somehow get praised by the fandom. It's kind of ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. So, if I had to split this up, I would say that for the first 3 books, Ron and Hermione was a finely written pairing. They were obviously developing. They were being built up. It's obvious that there was something there, but Rowling hadn't really gone, very far with that. And it was in the background, not like in the later books where the romance was just like, in your face. So, it was fine. And then book 4 is where you really start seeing these problems. And these problems, again, are not Ron problems. These problems are Rowling problems. This is the problem with the writing. I mean, I think it's an important distinction to make with these characters, that when they're being badly written versus what they were written. Like, you can have a character who starts off fine, but then they're being written out of character, and then they end up becoming horrible, and then saying, okay, they've been horrible the entire time. No. Ron was fine for the first 3 books. But then, Goblet of Fire onward, he ends up becoming a different character. For no reason other than Rowling doesn't know what she's doing. And this is the problem. This is a Rowling writing problem. And it's kind of painful to see people pin Ron as some sort of evil monster the entire time, without even looking at why he ended up being so disliked. And this is a problem that I didn't even realize until I actually started looking into this as much. And it's actually something that I hadn't thought about until fairly recently, when I started seeing a lot more of this drama come up. But Ron's character was written badly in book 4 onward. But again, so was everyone else. So if you hate Ron, then, well, you gotta hate Hermione, you gotta hate Harry, you gotta hate, all these other characters. You gotta hate Dumbledore, you gotta hate everyone. And then, but I feel like personally for me, I am someone who always sees a lot of these cutoff points. I see a series is good, and then this stupid thing happens, and for me, that's my cutoff point. Alright, I ignore the rest of this. Like when I watched the show Person of Interest. You know, I actually really enjoyed the show. And then at the end of the Endgame, you know, 3-part finale, it's like, okay, everything's fine, everything's wrapped up. Boom, one of the major characters is killed off. And there's all of a sudden all this stupid new plot that comes in out of nowhere. And I was like, that's my cutoff point. That's my cutoff point. So for me, after, you know, The Prisoner of Azkaban, it's my cutoff point. The first 3 books I like. I still like them, and, you know, I'll even watch the movies. It's just the books. Book 4 onward with Goblet of Fire. This is the problem where Rowling obviously started loose. She may have only had plans that went up to that point, and then didn't really know what she was doing. She may have been trying to capture a darker, more adult audience, and failed. She may have been, you know, just riding by the seat of her pants the entire time and just totally ran out of ideas by that point and didn't even bother to, you know, to figure things out. Maybe that was the point, that she just achieved protection from the editors and that she could do anything she wanted without anyone being able to tell her anything. So then we ended up with heavily messy stories that weren't properly edited. Who really knows? But the problems obviously started with Goblet of Fire, and Ron and Hermione ended up becoming an awful pairing. Yeah, I don't like them past that point. I don't like seeing Ron act like a jealous douchebag. I don't like seeing Hermione act like, you know, a stuck-up brat. I don't like seeing Hermione act bad and then never get called out for it. I don't like seeing Harry act like a self-absorbed douchebag. I don't like seeing these things. I mean, I don't like seeing Harry go raging jealousy over Ginny. I don't like seeing this stuff. While the books aren't completely, absolutely terrible, there are some okay things. There are some good things in, you know, the later books. It's just that, particularly if you want to look at, you know, some of the characters, and specifically Ron and Hermione, the problem is that the writing just got worse and worse over the course of the series. And then you end up with so many things, you know, not properly getting resolved. Like I mentioned before, that Harry going to live with Sirius instead of the Dursleys was something that could have been, you know, there's a lot you could have done with that. Oops, Sirius gets killed off and Harry has to go back to the Dursleys. It's like, what? Why? Well, because Rowling had to force things to be the way she wanted to. And this happens a lot with all the romantic pairings. But it's not like there was no build-up for Ron and Hermione like there wasn't for Harry and Ginny. Harry and Ginny legitimately came out of nowhere. Harry and Cho had books of build-up. You had, you know, him having a crush on her in Prisoner of Azkaban, him trying to ask her to the dance in Goblet of Fire, and then them getting together in Order of the Phoenix, and then subsequently breaking up in Order of the Phoenix so that Harry can obsess over Ginny for literally no reason. What? But those problems, the problems that Henny had, or not the problems that Hermione had. Henny was something that, you know, was something that came out of nowhere at the end of the series. Hermione was something that had been built up and then got ruined. I mean, there are a lot of things that they really could have done. In fact, I would have really loved to have seen Ron see Krum. Like, if Krum never was into Hermione, but Ron was, like, looking up to Krum and trying to get advice from him on, you know, talking to girls. And in fact, that actually would have been really interesting, because I was talking about this with a friend, that it would have been really interesting if Krum became a mentor for Ron in a very similar way that Cedric was a mentor for Harry. And in fact, if you wanted to have, you know, Ron, it'd actually be a lot more interesting if Ron was trying to impress Hermione with something. It'd say that Krum would be like, yeah, join the Quidditch team. Quidditch is how you really get girls' attention. Then Ron would be like, okay, I'll join the Quidditch team. And that would have actually been a far more funny reason for him to join the Quidditch team than he ended up doing. It's like, but we never got any of that. And there are some nice moments and stuff later on with Ron and Hermione. And I really feel like it shows that had Rowling written them properly, they could have been a great pairing. If she was consistent with how she wrote them, if she was, you know, careful with how she used drama, and made sure to develop them properly over the course of the series, then they could have been a wonderful literary couple. But they were not, because Rowling is a bad writer. So I think that pretty much sums this up about, Ron and Hermione. So I'll just cut it off here because I don't want to end up ranting for hours about this. So if you want to, submit a topic to me, you can either comment below if you're on YouTube, if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and do topic : and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules that I'll be posting down below. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. If you have anything else you want to say about this topic, any feelings you have about Ron and Hermione, or if there's anything else you want me to talk about, just comment below. And thank you for watching.